It's more than a little strange, given that Super Mario 64 was released all the way back in 1996 in Japan and North America. But an internet meme eventually emerged in May 2020 about every copy of Mario 64 being personalized. If you do a little research, or I mean, run a Google search at least, you'll learn that in May 2020, some randos on 4chan's V board posted some stuff about Wario's floating head randomly and menacingly appearing in the walls, and something about a cursed build of the game. There's also something about the wet, dry world level being a representation of a human brain. Like most internet memes, it's all just fake, right? Another obvious problem, other than the time gap in discovering the alleged personalization, is that the statement is an absolute. Who can say if every copy of Mario 64 is personalized? You would need to somehow gather every Super Mario 64 cartridge ever made, even the ones that had been burned or otherwise destroyed, and investigate each and every last one. Also, how would this allegedly paranormal cartridge know the player personally? This implies some sort of paranormal, mystical dimension of video gaming that doesn't merit belief. Well, in any event, I was at least nostalgic to play the game for the first time in 20 something years, so I headed down to my local mom and pop used game store and purchased a copy. This was June 2020, and the stupid meme had already caught on, and my local stores raised the price on the game because of the new demand on the game supply. What did I discover but a lot of fun? Playing around with Mario's face as if he was a flesh and silly putty hybrid, throwing the King Babam off the cliff, racing the giant Koopa and Penguin, stomping on the giant Thwomp. It was the game exactly how I remembered it. But I will admit that there was a sort of sadness inside of me as I played it. Maybe it was just reminiscing about lost youth, the friends I had who are off living different lives now with their kids and spouses and living in other parts of the country and even other countries. Honestly, I got so depressed that I turned the game off. Honestly, it wasn't until Hazy Maze Cave that something struck me as even odder than that. That toxic yellow mist that drained my life. It's strange, but as slices of that power circle pizza began to dissipate, I felt a little bit sadder. I didn't feel it in other parts of the game when I lost health. Not even the parts when Mario was slowly drowning, or even when I lost lives. What even was it about the yellow, hazy maze cave mist? Had I developed some sort of strange phobia, or repressed a memory of something? Bee stings, overly salted or burnt butter popcorn, something else yellow and black that bothered me as a child. That's just ridiculous, right? But I just couldn't help it. The more Mario jogged through that poison marsh of smoke, it was like I lost a piece of myself. And I just felt this uncontrollable, unbearable sadness. It's strange to admit this, but I wept. I don't know if you're familiar with being clinically depressed, and really, I'd prefer that you didn't, given how much of a weight it is on your everyday life and moments. But it was like I couldn't move anymore. I didn't want to play. I put aside the controller and stared at the screen for a while. I had the remote. I could turn off the TV, but I just continued to stare straight ahead. I didn't press pause. Mario died. And that was when things changed for me. Forever. The toxic mist expanded. I assumed someone modified the game logic, the code. It filled up the pits and then it extended upward like water filling up the room of a sinking ship. Bowser's laugh didn't play. The screen didn't fade to black. It just got more and more yellow, mistier. It didn't happen, but I imagined my television screen filling with the mist, shattering, it spilling out onto my living room floor. For a moment, I forgot who I was, forgot the names of my old friends, locations where they were now. New Hampshire, Missouri, New Mexico was my best friend named Todd or Wilson, but I wasn't struggling to remember. At first, I felt an existential dread about it, but then I just stopped caring. Then the screen faded out. Maybe over a half a minute, maybe a minute. It wasn't like I was counting seconds, but it went full opaque. I tried to turn the game back on. It didn't work at first. I stretched out and laid down on my futon for a while. Probably was a couple hours. I didn't bother checking the time on my phone. Then I pulled myself back together and I successfully turned the game back on. I didn't remember turning the Nintendo 64 console off to begin with, but I guess I did. I was back in Hazy Maze Cave. The toxic gas didn't make me feel anything unusual anymore. I was just playing a game like any other. Or maybe not. Because Mario 64 is an especially high fun factor experience when you're in the mood for a platformer with somewhat tricky controls, and for its era, quite a bit to explore. I mean, it's a game in which you jump into living paintings to explore frosty plains, underwater caverns, fiery volcanoes, and some sort of Legos in the Netherworld sky levels that lead you up to the big Bowser boss fights. You know what's strange? I forgot all about the depression. I kept playing and playing, dying and dying, but also succeeding and succeeding. Beat the game, flying around like the usual ending. Thank you so much for playing my game. You know the drill. Cute, short, sweet. Something inside of me told me that I just had to get 120 stars. You know what they say about Yoshi being on the roof if you gather 120 stars and shoot your way up there in one of those panel cannons. So that's what I did. Took a few days, and I called out of work once, but hell, I did it. Didn't feel proud, though. Felt kind of stupid to be doing that as an adult, prioritizing playing a retro game over paying the bills and affording something dietary that wasn't starch and sugar from the Dollar Tree or worse, Domino's Pizza. But I did it. I took off, blasted my way up there, soaring into that 3D polygonal world's impression of air, and landed right where I felt I needed to go. There was no Yoshi. There was no typical roof. The screen changed to the depths of Hazy Maze Cave. Transitioned quickly, faded and fast. It wasn't like that level, though. It was just void. Darkness. Other than the toxic yellow gas. And it built up again. and the 3D impression of it rising. Mario's health meter drifted down, but ever so slowly, and perhaps 3 or 4 times less the usual rate than it would if I was in the actual stage. I knew my pulse was quickening. Was the game mocking me? How was that even possible? And what did I have to do with toxic yellow gas? I had a different response to this Mario death. I didn't stick around for it. I got up, turned off the console's power, turned off the TV, ripped out the cartridge. It was too late to return the game, but I did the following afternoon. I was so pissed. I could spit right into the bottom of the cart. That felt borderline barbaric. I slammed the game cart directly on the cashier counter, though. I could feel my brows furrow. I demanded answers. How could you sell me something like this? I exclaimed and inquired all at the same time. The middle-aged woman's wrinkled face balked. Remained the same. I half expected her eyes to bulge in surprise at my reaction. She didn't scowl, or smirk, or laugh, or cry, or... Well? All she did was keep her cool and mumble. Not every copy of Mario 64 is personalized. Was that supposed to be some sort of cruel joke? I began to walk out, but she kept calling me back, telling me to take my game. I informed her that I didn't want it, and I hopped back into my car and sped home, engine roaring through the streetlights. Oh, I regret the reckless driving, but thankfully I didn't put anybody's life in danger, as far as I could tell anyway. When I went to bed that night, I actually had peace of mind, because I felt like I did what I needed to do to settle the score with being sold a sadistic hacked ROM of a game cart that may or may not have been permanently damaged, and permanently damaged my Nintendo 64 video game console for all I knew. But that didn't last for long. The following morning, I suddenly remembered the name and state of residence of my childhood best friend. It was a call that morning from my more or less second best friend from my youth. Our childhood best friend, who worked with poorly ventilated HVAC systems in the basements of dilapidated buildings, had died recently from carbon monoxide poisoning.